and a very busy day at Pellicer and Heredia. The Alicante lawyers. Pedro is elsewhere, but Ignacio is with us, which is always good. Good to see you.
Yes, good afternoon, Carl.
How's things?
Well, pretty busy, as you could imagine now. Is this period of the time is always overwhelming, isn't it?
Now, Pedro dragged away last minute, so you're going to have to do things solo today. But you're an old hand at this.
Yeah,
no problem at all. There is the webinar coming up later, of course, with Pellicer and Heredia with the Alicante lawyers .es, all about, if I can get it right and say it in the correct way, Moody's been schooling me, OKUPAS, squatters.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to talk in this webinar today at 5:30 Spanish time, well, Madrid time. We're talking about the squatters, what to do in case this happens to you, what is a criminal action, a civil action, what is the best course of action, tips and advice by Pedro, myself, and Michael Davis from Almeria, Mojaca.
I noticed some insurance companies are actually offering a service, an insurance service, if this happens to you, if your property ends up with squatters. So I guess the legal process might not be straightforward. In Spain, it seems to be quite difficult to get people out.
Well, it's hard to answer so general because we have different type of procedures. So not to go into much detail, technical, you've got the option to do the criminal. Then you need to make differences, whether is your main property or what we call it, home,
holiday home or second home.
Or the other option is whether you've got an investment. And then, and you could start the action.
So depending on what you're using the property for could depend on how you can manage it legally. So I would imagine in most cases that Bay Radio listeners would perhaps be those with a second home in Spain, for instance.
Right. Well, second home is considered as well as home, obviously. It's not an investment property, which it goes through a different road, you know. But some people, it's hard to advise so general. What would you do in this specific case? I need to know the grounds or the details to say, well, I would call the Guardia and they will come straight away and then you start a criminal action. Now, I don't think the criminal action will be best because of the lengthy procedure, you know, but sometimes you need to prove so much. Because in dubio pro reo, that means that in case of any doubt, always there is a presumption of innocence. Mm-hmm. So probably that's going to drag it on too long.
Does it take a while to... I mean, obviously, getting things to court takes a while anyway, doesn't it? So you've got quite a long gap before you can get to court. And as you said, then the appeal process
process. So you could even probably... I'm not trying to scare people, but we could even be facing probably more than a year.
Okay.
You know?
That's probably a little bit better than I was thinking, to be honest.
I was going to say too, but it depends on the appeal, depends on that and the other. That's with regards to the criminal side. If you say, they broke into my property, this is my home, or even second home, and therefore I want to denounce them through the Guardia, through the court, to take them out, basically.
And is that the best way to go about that particular case, perhaps?
I wouldn't do probably criminal. But it depends on a lot of factors.
Right. It's hard to say without specific circumstances.
You know, probably criminal. I will only recommend on specific cases, especially if you're not in a rush. You know, especially if you're not in a rush.
But I guess imagine all the time that this goes on, the people are still there.
Yeah. That's correct.
So
you cannot
unable to use the property legally, which some people find a bit confusing. But legally, you can't just get in there and kick them out.
Yeah, that's correct. That is taking justice by yourself is not allowed.
For which you can be prosecuted.
Yeah, I know it sounds all crazy but that's the way it is. Exactly the same as if you are just cutting off the electricity or the water, whatever. That means duress, basically, and they could denounce you as well because of your exerting pressure to do something before a trial. So
hang on. So if you've got the water or the electricity on direct debit, you're therefore paying that, and there's somebody squatting in your house, and you're not allowed to stop it.
You're not allowed to stop it because, if you stop it, you could be facing a procedure from the other party, from the OKUPA, right, from the squatter, against you, saying that they're exerting pressure on you. So
it's scary.
Yeah, but let me just give you a little bit more of light here. If you go down on the civil,
Right.
Civil road. We were just talking about the criminal. If we go civil, that there is being a new act that was 2018, and basically they try to do like recovering possession, basically like taking the action is about taking possession back from the property. And that's the fastest way to do it. So they've got only 5 days, so you serve the claim.
Okay, that sounds better.
They've got 5 days to contest. If it's not consistent, their opposition, therefore, automatically the court orders an eviction order. With that in hand, when that happens, you don't even need to wait. If they want to appeal, you don't even need to wait 20 working days until it's solid, that sentence. And you can enforce it straight away.
But now, how do you enforce that? Who does that? The police?
No, we as lawyers ask the court to enforce that sentence, and the court, through the police, gives you an eviction day for the police to go there and take him out. Now, the problem here, Carl, is that nothing is as fast as you and me would like. That's the thing. But that will be the fastest road I will probably recommend. Now, you've got different options as well, because I always say in general, but this is just trying to protect your property. If you have an alarm system or even your mobile, or, and if it does happen, because the police could stop them if they find them straight away doing so. So it's like infraganti, we call it, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They are allowed to kick him out straight away, but no, they're staying there for more than X amount of hours.
You only find out after a while,
because it could be an argument, and the whole case here is discussing whether you're right or you're wrong. It's like, okay, let's have a trial. Once you have the trial, then they will be out.
So I know a number of people do have that. They actually have the alarms where you can see,
or even your mobile number.
On the mobile, you can see whether people are at your door, in the house, whatever. So that's probably the best point to try and catch people.
I think that's the best investment. It doesn't matter that it needs to be with the gun company. Probably you buy your own cameras.
Lots of options there.
You have a lot of options, but that really stops, because let's say you've got an alarm and it just calls your mobile. Let's say you don't pay all these kind of alarm system. It's just your own alarm system. And you ring the police, because that's all they do. The people from the alarms, what they do is ring the police, and the police goes there. So let's say the alarm system is beeping, and you're being informed by the telephone through the IT system, and you ring the police. The police goes there, and pretty much, if they normally the police will take probably 15 minutes to go to.
Indeed, but it's actually at the time it's happening, so that can be dealt with immediately. That can be
immediately. Yeah. So that's why I think it's so important, and I'm not promoting here
any company sells alarms,
at all.
No,
what I'm saying is everybody has their own choice, and everybody could do their cheapest way, which is your cameras. You buy the cameras, and that's you do. And then when it starts beeping, then the police arrives, and they could kick them out, basically straight away.
Okay, that sounds pretty good.
So that's the best way. The problem in general, Carl, is that people on holidays don't know anything. They don't have cameras. They don't, and when they just move to their property, they're already there.
Talking to Ignacio from AlicanteLawyers.es today about OKUPAS, or squatters, as we've been hearing this afternoon. One way to deal with the situation if it's your second home or your second property. You mentioned at the outset then that we might have a situation where squatters are in a property that somebody's bought to rent. So say an Airbnb or similar company, something like that. And that's a slightly different situation?
Well, probably these people have paid. So it's like initially. A tenant initially, and after that they stop paying or just decide not to leave the property. The fact is similar, but it's not your main property. It's not your house. It's not your main property. It's just your investment property. The only difference, Carl, you will see here: are you entitled to evict him? Of course. Would it probably go through a different process? Yes, because a different type of property. But the bottom line is that you will evict, at the end of the day, that person anyway. Now, the law in 2018 changed to this clause that is a bit more we call it express eviction, but it's not that fast as we all would like 2 days.
Faster than it might have been otherwise.
Yeah. It's not like if somebody stole your car and your police will get it back for you.
It's still property, you see, so I can't quite see why there's a big difference there, but there is, obviously.
There is. Well, there is, and I don't want to get too much into legal here, but the Constitution says that everybody should have a property, what they call it, like a fair property, the right to have a property. And therefore, the only objection here, Carl, that happens, the only thing that happens is that you need to go through a procedure. And the procedure is not fast enough to your stress.
You're back to, the stress levels, but certainly you're back to something where, say, perhaps somebody's bought this property as an investment to make money so that they can live off that, and then there's somebody there who's not paying. You're in a very difficult situation.
That's a difficult situation. I agree. And the only problem I could blame is that the procedures are not fast enough as the criminals. Because if somebody does a crime, which this could be treated as a crime, as I said, this could go, a break-in is a crime in Spain, or just taking over an investment property is a crime as well. Now, what's going to happen? It's going to take 2 years probably, because you can start appealing, and then in the meantime, somebody's living in their property. So you could choose having the other option, which is a civil action. And the civil action might go much faster.
Both cases that we've talked about seems that the civil way is the better way to go for most cases.
I agree. I mean, the criminal is an option, but you always need to discuss it with your lawyer because we need to know where we are. I mean, are we in the Denia jurisdiction? Are we in the Torrevieja jurisdiction? Where are we? How far does the court go in different cases? It's not the same one courtroom than the other. And I don't see many benefits on the criminal except principles, because you say, no, you took over, you're going to be considered a criminal, you're going to have a prison sentence, and then you'll have criminal records, plus you'll have to pay, and then you will, I will repossess eventually, because the court will order exactly the same. But the landlord only wants it back as soon as possible. And sometimes people are prepared to say, hey, let's give up, let's reach an agreement and go. These people who are always trying to do this kind of investment on, I rent, I pay the first month, and then I stop paying. Mm-hmm. Then I do it again with a different landlord. Then I do it again. That's considered to be a crime as well, because that's fraud. The only thing is you need to prove that you're doing it that way. So, I mean, the bottom line here, Carl, is are you going to be able to get an eviction order? Yes. Now, how fast is going to be? That's difficult to say depending on the case. There are ways around it as well to try to see what's the best course of action, but that's always for them to discuss it with a lawyer.
And again, it'll come back to each particular individual case. Now, we do know that there are people who you can engage who aren't lawyers to try and help you get your property back. And they work in various different ways. There are the thugs who'll just go in and, or there are the others who kind of play the squatters at their own game and go in and squat. I mean, either way, you end up spending quite a bit of money and it's not quite a legal process.
Correct. You've got the legal way, which is hiring the lawyers and going through the courts. Some people just hire these companies that their job is to take them out one way or the other. Now, it is their problem if they do any illegal things, and they are facing probably some charges if they do so, but that's their responsibility.
As the landlord, you could end up with being prosecuted for something that might happen in that situation.
At the end of the day, depending on what your contract says, which I don't know what they will be signing, you could be in the middle of a messy situation, but you'll have to discuss it. What are the services? If the services are just convincing, or what are they saying? That's the legal.
How are they going to do it?
Yeah, how are they going to do it? But yes, a lot of people use that as well, and the situation that they cannot afford, as you say. I'm paying for a mortgage. I cannot afford. It's like people sometimes, these things happen. Some people might even speak to their friends and go there and talk, and things get hot, and you don't know what ends up happening, you know? So sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes they could ring the police gets in the middle. So it's a very subjective call. It's very hard to tell you exactly, because it all depends on facts and evidence. Facts and evidence. If there are evidence of certain things, then you could be in trouble.
So, yeah, the person who's trying to get their property back, ultimately, even if you go through one of these companies, which on the face of it seems straightforward and relatively legal, you could still end up facing charges.
I agree. You could always have an issue, you know? I've been dealing with different cases, and it's very specific to advise on every single case, Carl.
Of course. The circumstances are different, so it's
very
hard to
delicate.
generalise.
But yes, probably I'm just the High Court in Madrid is the criminal court in the High Court in Madrid. One of the guys who is from Alicante is Vicente Magro. He wrote a book about OKUPAS and what to do in this case. A thick one. It's more for lawyers than for probably
the layman.
Because it's hard to understand. You know, it's very legal. But he's pushing very much for a very express way of
faster way to get people out.
You know, like 2 days or things like that. You know, because shouldn't be. It's just the system. It's like nowadays, if you, for example, the criminal thing about domestic violence now in Spain is very, very fast.
Well, and I remember the legislation coming up and going through, and now things are dealt with very, very quickly. So everybody, we do know that things take a long time to become law and take a long time to get through the courts. But something akin to what they did with domestic violence would be great. At the moment, it's not in place, so it's a very difficult situation if you end up with squatters, isn't it? But I think back to your original statement, which was do invest in some kind of alarm system, because if you can catch people in the act and get in contact with the police straight away, that's got to be the best way to deal with people.
And when people say, well, is it safe to invest in Spain? Obviously, it is safe. I mean, you live here. I do, and probably you never had problems.
We did hear quite a bit about squatters a few years back, and that was obviously tainting what people were thinking about the housing market here in Spain. I mean, it seems to have gone away a bit since 2018. I think when there was that slight change in legislation.
It started with the repossession properties from the banks. You know? And these...
following on from the financial crisis, and there were lots of empty properties around which were owned by the banks. And,
and they started taking over. But that's a different thing, you know. Sometimes people are professionals of squatters, so professional squatters, I would say, and this is what is a crime as well, you know. I'm in part of a neighbourhood. Which actually in the WhatsApp group, they say, oh, somebody broke in. The important thing, another good piece of advice called neighbours. Neighbours always watch out. And they call the police straight away. And that's like the message we all have. If you see something dodgy or something, they ring your bell and you see, because they try, you know, they do shopping and they go and mark the houses and they say, oh, this one doesn't leave anybody here, or they're going to jump, or they've got their strategies, you know. So I heard on this group say, oh, there is somebody coming on the area and trying to ring. So they ring one day, they ring another one, so they know. And they just straight away just jump in. They've got a false tenancy agreement. So when the police comes, they just show the tenancy.
Well, it's not actual real.
So it's not. So it's
oh wow.
Yeah, but you know you cannot kick them out because there is a legal dispute.
Yeah, this phrase professional squatters, it's quite worrying.
Yeah. And there are cases like this. Yeah, there are, and that's why I'm saying cameras is good, neighbours are good. And then always have a handy number to ring the Guardia because they're very fast, very efficient, and probably in 10 minutes they're in your house. Okay. But the bottom line, we are heading into a faster, like interdict or, like a...
we're heading in the right direction, and hopefully soon there'll be a quicker process for that, yeah?
I'm hoping on that,
right.
I'm hoping.
Okay. We're talking to Ignacio from AlicanteLawyers.es at Pellicer and Heredia this afternoon. We've heard some bits about the Golden Visa scheme. First of all, of course, that Spain were going to cancel it. Now we understand that Spain's government still isn't sure how it can cancel the Golden Visa scheme through property investment. This is 2 months ago that they first did that. And so what is it they're not sure about? Why do they not know how to stop it?
I think what they're trying to find is a way forward. I mean, they did order a report to one of the ministries to understand what impact the Golden Visa had, inflating prices, which, to be honest, I don't really think is a bonus. I mean, you're buying a property worth more than 500, then that qualifies. I don't really think is inflating property because of that, because that's, it's just, there is no cases like 490,000, but because of Golden Visa, we'll make it 500. Not really. I don't see that as a reason, but they are trying to find that option, and the only thing it could happen here, and it's a politic approach here, Carl, is that they remove the requirement of the property, and you could still get a Golden Visa based on investment, like investment funds, for example. If you invest in money, €1 million, not 500, into Spanish bond, basically, umbrellas, then you qualify. Now, that still gets a good part because, one, you do an investment. Mm-hmm. Two, hopefully you will get a return. And three, you could cancel any time. And you don't really need to commit yourself on paying transfer tax, etc., etc. I'm trying.
So that should be a bit better for the people that can afford it.
That's correct. The only problem is double. I mean, 500 gets into double. Then you probably would like to buy a property, and then you need to have more money aside, which is $1 million
to be able to do it.
And I don't even want to talk into, Carl, the $2 million debt. That's another option you have as well, but.
Okay. I guess this was all meant to be part of the Ley de Suelo, the law that was going to go through regulating the use and valuation of land, and now that's not got the support that the government need to be able to get it through. So that's why it's fallen by the wayside, the Golden Visa scheme. Meanwhile, people are still applying, and they're still happening quite quickly.
Yeah, actually, we are having a lot of Golden Visa applications, and we are submitting a lot of them, because whoever made their mind and they want to go for it, I always say just go ahead. There is no guarantee when the law is going to change. I mean, actually, in our website, we advise people to say do it quickly or just find a different alternative, like non-lucrative visa or any other. But yeah, once you have all the paperwork, Carl, it will only take 20 working days maximum.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, considering some things take a very long time.
The administration in Spain, yeah. It's one of the fastest things, actually. And that still carries on, which I don't know when and if they're going to amend their requirement for property, because would they put it 1 million? You were telling me probably Portugal is bringing it back. So
yeah, I mean that's certainly something that we've been hearing about. So yeah, it's a little bit strange, isn't it? But the amendment to the bill could still happen at some point in Spain, which means it might go through. But yeah, in the meantime, they're still available. You can still get one, and if you can manage it, by all means, get it sorted out sooner rather than later. And of course, you guys are still dealing with applications right now.
And that's the reason probably why they approach us on the TV. That's the program.
I was going to bring that up because you've been on national TV recently. Normally it's Moody following you about, but this time it was the national TV cameras. How did that come about?
Yeah, actually they approached us on a Friday and they said they want to do an interview. And Lupe answered the telephone, and we said, well, they needed to go and visit a client's house as well, just for sale. So it took us, we did quite good. It was on a Monday. We managed to do everything on a Monday. And they do the interviews because they try to get all different sides. For example, who supports that, who thinks it's for money laundering, because in the TV, some people were supporting that the Golden Visa was not good because it doesn't give you good enough time to do all the homework for money laundering, which, to be honest, I disagree, because banks, straight away...
The first thing they do.
The first thing they do, I do normally every week in my bank brings me, because my client account's got some money from clients, and they want to know where the money's coming from. But the client always has available and shows where is that money coming from. So I don't really think the reason is money laundering. I really think it's a politic approach, trying to make it like bring the message that is inflating the prices, which is not really the case. I don't know whether it's a little bit more because there were a lot of Russians.
Well, we did see that it was a lot of Russians and Chinese that were buying properties. So, so there was concern about that. And perhaps that wasn't the intention when they first started the Golden Visa scheme.
But at the moment, we've got a lot of Americans and British.
We do.
So that's what I'm saying. Is it about nationality? I don't think so. I don't know. It's a good question here, Carl. What they're doing, what is going to happen, but nevertheless, if anybody's interested to do it, I always say just do it as soon as possible to protect yourself with that application. And renewing the Golden Visa, I don't think will be a problem.
Yeah, because that would be something that you might worry about. If they're going to cancel it, what happens once you get one and then it comes to renewal? But from everything that we've seen and understood, that will be still continued. When you come to renewals, it will be honoured.
I find it hard to believe that is restrictive to rights. So if you've been granted one right, you'll carry on having
difficult to take it away.
Difficult to take it away. That was like applying for the TIE before Brexit.
Indeed.
And actually, I'm dealing now with an interesting case. The lawyer of state appealed one of our cases for TIEs. And the court in Alicante is very much in our favor. But recently, I have a high court now discrediting that and saying, it's all about the insurance, Carl. Going back to the Brexit, do you have an insurance policy before Brexit?
So medical insurance, you mean?
Yes, correct.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's strange that the High Court would be getting involved in something like this, is it not?
Yeah, the High Court gets because you first go to Heredia. You present all paperwork. Heredia Foreign Office says, no, I'm sorry, you never had the insurance in place but there is not really a law that says you should have it as long as you just land. After 3 months when you apply for your residency, you should have your insurance. It doesn't say, it says you should have an insurance when you apply for residency, but you could apply within 3, 6, 8, like a lot of Brits didn't apply to start with, and they did it at the very end before Brexit. So some people didn't do it before the 31st of December 2020, and they submitted everything, the application, after the 2020. So now the lawyer of state, they always did, and they always fail. But now they took it to a high appeal in I think it was Valencia court, administrative court. And I just got recently this sentence saying pretty much disagreeing with what the Alicante court says. And it is an argument because... And then we're going to take it to the High Court in Madrid. So I'm taking that one. That particular case was the only one that we had a problem. We're taking that to Madrid because I was talking to Carmen saying, no, this cannot be right. I mean, where in the law states that as soon as you land, after 3 months, you should have a...
medical insurance.
And they don't require that to Europeans. And that's the thing. They don't direct. So you see.
It's that grey area where obviously this didn't exist before Brexit and now it exists because of, and maybe all the loopholes weren't nailed down. I don't know.
I'll tell you something. If you're a European and you apply for residencia, for green, you could do it any time.
But you're entitled to medical, so if you're part of the EU.
Yes, well, that's a different story. If you already have the SIP card from the EU that covers in Spain, fine. But the problem is about the issue of the date of issue. Now, we never had a problem with Europeans and British before Brexit for us are Europeans. But what happened after Brexit?
We become part of that third country status.
Correct. And now they're being difficult. They're being very square, And so far, so good. We did cover a lot of, all the sentence. But this one, that they dare to appeal it in Valencia, for some reasons, interpretation of law and different. They say, well, you should have, before Brexit, the insurance. Because you were resident before you made... And then we say, hold on a minute, where is it written down?
It's not written down. It's not in the detail.
And they just interpret it generally.
So once you get that, but at some point, somebody's going to have to make the decision. A judge is going to have to make the decision, and then you have the precedent, and then we'll be okay again. Each time. It's because I think a lot of these things are because the things were not in the detail in that particular part of the agreement. So each part of it, every time it comes to it, has to be trialed through the courts until the point where you get a judge to go, no, it means this, and then hopefully that will stick rather than be appealed. But difficult one, Ignacio.
It's difficult because, as I said, we started through the Alicante court. Then if the lawyer of the state doesn't appeal, then we're happy. And we were happy. But now for some reason, he's taking it further. And it's like scoring 1 goal, 2 goals, 1-1. And then now I'm saying, no, I'm not stopping here. I'm going to Madrid because it's just for president, as you said.
You have to go,
And we still get these clients and these people who unfortunately didn't apply for it. And now let's say you find somebody who didn't apply for the TA and they want to do it, but the insurance is not in place because they will do it now. They don't have it from before Brexit.
Indeed.
Now,
so it's another technicality that
is a technicality correct?
All right, Ignacio, thank you very much indeed. Plenty more always on the website, alicantilawyers.es. And if there's anything you'd like to know more about, then you can get in contact via the website or indeed by contacting us here at Bay Radio and our usual numbers on the WhatsApp at 684 455 844, email studio@bayradio.fm. You'll be glad to know because Ignacio has the TV screen behind him. Honours even at the end of all that. The guy who scored the own goal scored at the end of the game in added time. So Klaus Gersula is now actually a happy bunny again because it finished 2-2 between Croatia and Albania this afternoon. Okay, thanks very much, Ignacio.
Okay, we'll see you this afternoon.
We'll catch up on the webinar. That's coming up at what time on the website?
5:30 in half an hour. We're having online streaming. And on the 28th call, we've got one for an auction of a property in a real case.